Welcome into another episode of the Sick Podcast. Steelers crazy as always. I'm Mike Nicastro. Follow me on Twitter at MikeDubSports1. At Jordan York Music, my guy, my co-host. He got stuck working a little overtime today, so he's behind the scenes. He'll be back jumping on with us on our next episode. Listen, if you followed me in the past, you know that the NFL draft is my absolute favorite time of the year. It's Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate in the winter and spring, man. And so wrote a story over on yinzercrazy.com and our platform and Sick Podcast earlier this week on a guy named Daiyan Henley, linebacker, who is absolutely making a name for himself. He's already made a name for himself on the West Coast, but on the East Coast too, we're absolutely talking about him big time. And now I'm going to talk to him right when we come back here on the Steelers Crazy Podcast.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Aaron Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
All right. We're excited. This is one of the most athletic dudes, honestly, I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've scouted a handful of these guys. So let's bring them on. Daiyan Henley, we're super excited. My guy, I got the Wazoo colors on for you today. I had to rock these.
Yes, sir. That crimson, I love it, man. That's the life right there. Go Cougs, baby.
Love it. Appreciate you jumping on with us, man. This is super exciting. One of the first prospects we're profiling over here. Man, you just had quite the week over in Mobile, Alabama, the Senior Bowl. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
The whole experience was great. Shout out to Jim Nagy for having me. It was a big deal. You know, not only was it a big deal for just me, but all the guys who were there. You know, you go throughout school, college, hoping to be invited to an all-star game, and one of the many, and if not the biggest, is that Senior Bowl. And to have the opportunity to go to that stage and showcase what I got, what I've learned, how I've grown, you cherish that moment, and it's an accolade in itself. Just being there is an accolade. So, it was a moment for me to go out there and try to shine amongst the big dogs, and I tried to do my best to do that.
Well deserved, 100%. Talking about accolades, Butt Kiss Award finalist, first team All Pac-12. Man, you got to expand that trophy stand over there. How do you think you fared? You talked about it. You touched on it there briefly. You had that big fumble recovery, but overall, in terms of the week at the Senior Bowl, what are your takeaways, kind of?
Well, for me, the biggest thing was to make an impact in my stock as far as coach's standpoint, to be able to go and showcase what I can do in front of the many coaches that I was able to, be around, to be a on the field and off the field leader was big for me. And, I felt like I really did that. And the biggest thing for me as far as what I wanted to showcase was the brains, the mind, the fact that I love football, I study the game. You can't see that type of stuff on film. Like, no matter what you say, you can look at a guy and run around, be athletic, but you don't get to under the hood and see what he's thinking, how does he process. And that was the biggest question mark I think that they had for me. And I wanted to go set that record straight, that I process, I can lead a field, I can command a defense as if a quarterback was commanding an offense. And I feel like the biggest thing for me was to do that, and I think I did that for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely incredible stuff. And your play on the field was not bad either. I gotta throw that your way. All right, listen, you talked about the coaches. I mentioned previously off air, you're aware, we're Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. That's an organization, obviously, that I'm sure you're familiar with, even though you're kind of a West Coast guy out there in California. Mike Tomlin was there. I know Brian Flores isn't coaching anymore for the Steelers, but he was out there. Did you have any interaction? Was there even like a what's up day on, a brush by from Coach Tomlin? Tell me about that.
Well, our defensive coordinator was the DB is the DB coach for the Steelers. I want to say Grady, but I could be wrong. But he was amazing at what he did. That was one that I interacted with on a day-to-day basis. I was able to talk to him every day. He was my coach, for the most part. So I tried to make the biggest impression I could on him. And then outside of that, I talked to Mike Tomlin a couple times.
Really?
He was on the sideline when I first met him. he was just right there. I came off the field and he looked at me and said, "You're from LA." So I'm like, he obviously knows me. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm from LA." And he was like, "Okay, how's it feel out there?" We talked, we chopped it up for a little bit. We laughed, and then I got back on the field the next day. So that was the first day. The next day he came and watched us do drills. He talked a little, he bantered a little bit of banter, like, "Man, linebackers can't get blocked by running backs. Make sure y'all not getting blocked." And so we talked a little bit, just quite some time. And then, outside of that, I had interviews with the Steelers. So I got to talk to the organization quite a bit, and it's more conversations to be had moving forward with the combine coming up.
Yeah, shout out secondary coach Grady Brown, man. Good call. That's something I didn't even realize it put together necessarily, but good to hear that you guys formed a little bit of a relationship out there, man. I want to talk about your versatility. I know this is probably something that gets brought up a lot. Probably don't get sick of talking about it. You start your career in Nevada, man. You're a receiver. Like, come
Yes.
on now. What receivers in college are transitioning to first team all pro linebackers? How often do you see that, man? But tell me about these experiences, how that transition happened first and foremost.
Well, what people don't really realize, it started. I was a quarterback from 5 years old to 17, which is
Yeah.
high school, senior high school, and senior high school is when I kind of became more athlete like base, where I started playing every position that you could think of on a football field, which is how I became a receiver. Get to college as a receiver, it's far much more simpler than being a quarterback ever. So like for me, I'm learning how to just sit in zones, sit in pockets. Where do I find my opening? How do I run this route and get him off balance? That's how I'm like learning the game from just outside in, because receiver, you're pretty much out the mix. But I was a very physical guy. Like, I was only like 190 to start, but I was one of the more physical receivers that we had. So from there, my position coach was like, "Man, you could be a hell of a guy on defense." I don't know if he's trying to kick me out the room or not, but he was like, "You could be a hell of a guy on defense just because you're so physical in the game. Like, you're more physical than everyone in my position room." So he was like, "Would you do that?" And I'm a yes type of guy. As far as coaches go, I'm trying to please the coach so I can get the best out of me and the team. And I feel like doing what a coach is asking of you is only because he wants everybody to be better. So I'm like, yeah, for sure, I'll go to defense and let's see how that goes. So from safety to nickel, from nickel to a spur in a 3-3 defense,
Mhm.
just moving around the defensive side. Eventually, I found a home at linebacker, and along the way, I was able to learn different things. Like, being a nickel, I'm more so out the box. I'm just running against slots where you can see that type of, like, my versatility. I stuck a lot of slots. Like, I wasn't sticking tight ends at the time. I was a nickel, so I was considered to be a faster guy. I got into the box, but I didn't lose I didn't lose anything that I learned from being a nickel, which is where my versatility expands. And that's something that I take pride in, playing so many positions, but learning from each. Not just a guy who moves around. Some dudes just move around position to position because they can play him. I'm moving around because my coaches understand that I can learn each position. So that's kind of how I move on and expand with the versatility.
I can't imagine how much playing receiver and quarterback helped you grow as a linebacker,
Yeah.
right? You understand routes, you understand, guys obviously hips, right? Watching where guys are going, route running, breaking out. I can't imagine, somebody having that experience, taking that to such a different position must have just elevated that play exponentially.
No, 1,000%. I mean, my thing, like my niche, my like what sets me apart, and how do I, because everybody that's in the draft class and in previous and future draft class, they all have that thing about them that makes them stand out, and some guys
Mhm.
don't. But I want to say that I am someone, because of the positions that I've played, makes me an every down guy. Like, I don't need to come off the field unless I need a water break, which I don't need too many of those, just making sure I stay hydrated. But, I don't need to come off the field because I'm an every down guy. You need me in the run game, I'm showing up. That's also something big that I wanted to show, that I'm physical at the point of contact. So I'm showing up in the run game. And then beyond that, I'm in the pass game. Like, I don't need to come off the field. And I love to learn. So I'm always growing. I'm always developing. I'm always trying to get better. And those are the things that I like key in on myself and just try to work and get through, just to show to these scouts, like, that's the guy I am. And beyond that, like, just to talk about just breaking down the game real quick, you learn as a quarterback that you're top down Where's the safety? How many two high, one high? Then what type of, box am I getting so I can know the passing game and the running game? From defense standpoint, linebacker standpoint, it's from bottom to the top. So I'm looking at the front, looking at the line of scrimmage, then I'm getting to the backfield. And that's kind of like the little difference that I've learned moving forward. And it's made me much better.
My guy, you literally don't ever have to come off the field. You can go out there, play some tight end, put you a slot receiver if you need to every once in a while, put you back there in the backfield,
Do it all.
wing T, man. Who knows? I absolutely love that. You obviously got a lot of strengths. We touched on those, but this process is exactly that. It's a process. What are some things you're working on right now as we lead up to that combine?
Right now, I'm just working on the consistency. Making sure that the things that I do, I can consistently do. It's a big quote that I've taken from my past coaches, is to be consistently good and not occasionally great. I don't want to pop up on screen and then I disappear, after that. So right now I'm just working on consistency. I'm still drilling the board, just going over film and watching film and talking football, just drilling. And beyond that, it's combine time. So we're working on that 40, making sure that speed shows up on that day, not only just on the football field.
All right, are we talking 4.4s?
I can't say what I'm doing now. Come on now, I can't
All
put
right,
it out
all right,
there.
I know. All right,
but we're gonna remember this. There, it's about being fast, man. It's about being fast.
I know. We're not talking 4.7s, 4.8s. So I'll put it between a 4.4, 4.6 range.
Now.
But we'll keep that a secret for sure, because obviously you're working on that, and you don't want to obviously exceed or not exceed expectations over here. We're talking with Daiyan Henley. We're super excited, man. This guy is an absolute beast. Shout out Wazoo. Shout out Nevada as well. Wrapping up here on the Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. All right, a couple last things. You're going to be in the NFL relatively soon. You're going to be playing against some top elite level guys. Yeah. Tell me some quarterbacks you want to sack, man. Who are you watching right now? Who are some guys you want to get your hands on?
Top to bottom, man. You got to go from the top to the bottom. And right now at the top, you got Patrick Mahomes. Yep. Undoubtedly, Patrick Mahomes, that's an elusive guy who's like short burst type of speed, not like a quickness, not like a fast guy where it's Lamar. But from top to bottom, I'm going to have to say Patrick Mahomes. Looking forward to it. Jalen Hurts, because he's in the Super Bowl, and then Alabama guy, Oklahoma guy, looking forward to it. And then Josh Allen, it's a lot of guys right now that I can say I want to sack and just have that accolade. I wish Tom Brady would have gave me one more game. I would have got Tom Brady. That would have been lovely. He could have gave me one more game.
You never know with Tom, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You never know. You
could all them years.
He can still play 10 years. Who knows? Who knows at this point now? I think he's done. You will sack those guys unless you're on their team, obviously.
Yeah, unless I'm on their team. I wouldn't mind being on any of those teams. Like I said, it's for me, wherever I go, I'm looking to make an immediate impact. And that could be on defense. That could be on special teams. It really doesn't matter. I just want to be on that field playing.
I'd like to see some Wazoo on Wazoo crime. You get a chance to sack Gardner Minshew one of these days out there. That's a legend out your way.
It is.
Hey, man, we appreciate you so much coming on. Daiyan Henley, it's been an absolute blast. We are going to be rooting for you like crazy. Myself, Jordan, our guys, Anello and Sammy in the studio back there. Can't wait to follow your journey. Can't wait to watch you run that 4.240 and break all those records that you're going to break. No, I'm just messing with you. This has been an absolute pleasure, man. I'm wishing you all the best and appreciate you doing it.
Thanks for having me, man.
You got it, man. Thanks again. Really cool stuff, man. Hopefully you guys can do us a favor. Of course, check us out on Instagram, right below, at the Sick Podcast Steelers. But most importantly, subscribe on YouTube, Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy, and Twitter, at Sick Pod Steelers. As I said, this is one of the coolest things that I can put together all year, honestly. I think we have some of the best draft coverage, and I did this last year too, is the fact that I can put together a player profile, but not just a player profile, but also a full-on interview with that player as well. So I can't thank Daiyan Henley enough. One of the, like I said, the coolest things that we're going to do all year is that. So I want to let you guys know, of course, something very, very, very important. Listen, it is betting season, obviously. It's a Super Bowl, man. Chiefs, Eagles, I can't tell you there's 1,000 props I'm looking at. I'm going to give you an early pick on one of them after I mention something really important, our sponsor, MyBookie. You asked for it. They listened. All right. My bookie, look, they're so cool. They could take over my face. You don't need to see me. My bookie is so great. All right. They designed a unique deposit bonus that lets you cash in and cash out quick. I'm on it. I can promise you that much. It is unique for sports bettors who want to focus on what to bet and not a payout sweat. You see that? No sweat right there, right now. Make your first deposit today before the Super Bowl, okay? Promo code SICKPICKS. It's easy enough. SICKPICKS. You see it below. Do me a favor. DM me. Ask me any questions, who you're rooting for, who you think you should bet. If you want a sports book that gives you the most for your money, of course, bet on the big game with my bookie. Pregame, live lines, Super Bowl props, as I mentioned, everything from the opening coin toss, the length of the anthem, the color of the Gatorade. That's always one of my favorite things. It's going to be orange, red. Maybe you'll even get a mountain rush in there, whatever it's called. Glacier Freeze. That used to be one of my favorites. I'll tell you what, I can't tell you who's going to win the Super Bowl yet. I'll do that on our next episode. But I can tell you where I'm placing the bets, and that's my bookie. Anytime, anywhere, any place. Let me give you a sick pick real quick. I'll throw out a Super Bowl one before we end this podcast. I'm looking at everything, man. I have an addiction to props. It's not healthy whatsoever, but it's fun. If there's one game you're going to throw a million props out there, right? A couple bucks on a million props, I should say. Don't make it sound like I was going to say $1 million. I don't have $1 million, obviously. But props are so much fun. I'm going to throw out my first one over here. I like Chiefs wide receiver Kadarius Toney, who is made of glass, right? This guy has been hurt most of the season. However, he's going to be healthy, it appears, relative to a degree, in this Super Bowl game. His over-under receiving yards is 23.5. These Chiefs weapons at receiver are not great. You got Juju, he's banged up. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, shout out Sky Moore, new Ken guy. If Kadarius Toney is on the field, he's going to be featured in this offense. I promise you that. It'll take him 1 or 2 catches to surpass 23.5 yards. That's my sick pick today. Go to my bookie, bet over Kadarius Toney, 23.5 yards receiving. That could change. Listen, if he doesn't play, obviously that is null. However, Kadarius Toney over my sick pick today, my bookie. It's been a sick podcast. Like I said, these are my favorite shows. Thank you so much for listening. Going to spray some great quotes out there. Obviously, follow me on Twitter at MikeDubSports1 and Twitter at SickPodcast Steelers. For Jordan York, who isn't here, and Nello and Sammy back in the studio. Appreciate yins. See you next time. I'm Mike Nicastro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.